This is an intro to supply and demand with Peyton Babby
and Claire Barter. When drawing the supply and demand graph, you first start by drawing a two-axis graph. You then label the top one, price, and the bottom one, quantity. The demand curve is a downward sloping curve because it is what a consumer is willing to pay or did pay, willing to pay or did pay. Make sure to label your demand curve whenever graphing. The demand curve, according to definition, is a function that shows the quantity demanded at different prices.
The supply curve follows the same two-axis graph format that the demand curve does, and you can see the demand curve is still on here. But this time the supply curve is upward sloping. I'm going to label that just like the other one. And it's upward sloping because the more a producer produces, the more it costs. According to definition, a supply curve is a function that shows the quantity supplied at different prices.
The next step to understanding supply and demand is finding equilibrium. Equilibrium price is the price at which the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. And equilibrium quantity is the quantity at which the quantity demanded is equal to the quantity supplied. The way to find this on a graph is see where supply and demand meet, which is right here. To graph it, you would first graph quantity and label that quantity equilibrium. And then go to your left and graph price and label that price equilibrium.
Consumer and producer surplus followed the same basic format, which is the additional benefit they receive from an exchange. For example, for consumer surplus, you would go from equilibrium to find what the consumer was willing to pay and what they did pay, willing to pay, did pay, willing to pay, did pay, willing to pay, did pay, all the way to equilibrium. This is the area of consumer surplus. You would do the exact same thing on the other side of the price at equilibrium to find producer surplus. The two highlighted areas represent the additional benefit from an exchange, and if you're trying to find the exact value, you would use the formula for a triangle, which is 1/2 times base times height.
While it would be nice for the demand and supply curves to stay where they are, they can shift. So for the demand shifters, there is a great acronym called PyTarg. And that acronym stands for Population, Income, Expectations, Taste, Advertisements, and Related Goods. So how that would affect the graph is if, say, there was a really fabulous ad campaign for some pencils. Then the demand for that good would increase. So it would move up and to the right. And this would be the new demand curve. So because this would be the original equilibrium with the quantity here and the price here, equilibrium would now shift with the demand curve to meet supply right here. So the quantity needed would increase, so for quantity shifted, and the price would also increase to accommodate that quantity with price shifted.
Similar to demand shifters, there are also supply shifters. Thankfully, there's also an acronym that goes like this. It's called PIT-GO-PO, which stands for Producers, Input Price, Technology, Government Policy, and Expectations. So, for example, if in the winter, suppliers don't expect for people to buy as many swimsuits. So the supply curve is going to shift up and to the left, making it decrease. Just like before, the previous equilibrium was where supply was at demand. And it's going to change this time supply shifted, making price go up and quantity go down.